from Somerville.
Greetings from Somerville. I am your host, Michael Somerville, and we're going to kick off today with a story about magic, which relates to our guest later on. I was in Houston, Texas, and normally when I do a show, my opener is another comedian, but this particular show, my opener was a comedy magician. So they do some jokes and they do some tricks, and it's the whole thing, and I had never had that before. And after the show, the guy said, "Do you want to go out, grab a beer or something?" And I'm usually, after shows, I like to lay low. I do my meet and greet with the audience, and then I like to either go back to my hotel, or if I'm going to go out, just find a quiet little bar somewhere where no one from the audience is going to be there. Some comedians are the opposite. They like to go to the bar where everyone's going to be, so they can continue on and maybe chat somebody up from the show who happened to see them on stage. But that's never been my speed. I like to hide off the beaten trail. But I say, okay, sure, I'll join this guy, go out for a little bit. And we find a little bar a little bit away from the show, so there wouldn't be a ton of people there, which I liked. But he clearly didn't like that. I think he wanted the attention and wanted to chat, because within 5 minutes of being in this bar, he starts talking about approaching women. Let's go talk to those girls. And that's just never been my thing. I've never been like that. I just kind of, I don't know. I like to lay low, watch a little Sports Center, go to bed. If, I happen to meet someone lovely, but I'm not kind of a go up to a woman in a bar and try to hit on her guy. I've never done that. So he's all amped up. He wants to talk to the women, and I kind of say, I'm not. Finally, he says, "Look, if I go up and I talk to some women and it's going well, will you join me?" And I said, "All right, fine. I'll be a wingman. That's the least I can do for this guy," as much as I didn't want to. So he picks out probably the most attractive women in the place. There's this group of women. There's just 3 or 4 of them, and they're just very, very attractive, all dolled up, doctored up, whatever you call it, for the night. And he said, "I'm going to go talk to them." I said, "You're out of your mind." Because this guy is a bit dorky. He's a little bit uncomfortable in his own skin. He's wearing a blazer that doesn't really fit. And I said, "Dude, what?" He takes out a deck of cards. And he says, "No, I got it. You're going to come back me up." And I said, "What? You're going to do a magic trick for these women?" And he's off. And he approaches this woman and says, "Pick a card." And she looks at him like he's crazy and says, What are you talking about? Pick a card." And she sort of doubtfully and suspiciously picks a card. And he proceeds to do a magic trick. And I said, "This is amazing. I'm about to watch an epic train wreck. This is going to be delicious to witness." And I am wrong. He proceeds to do a trick, and she's blown away, and she smiles and laughs, and all of a sudden her body language changes. She opens up to him. She's like, "Oh, do another trick, do another." Her friend comes over. Within 5 minutes, there's a circle of women around this dude, and he's just holding court. And I was just blown away. I didn't even go over because he didn't need me. He didn't need a wingman. At this point, he was the king, and I was just going to look like a weirdo coming over, and I'd be the court jester, I guess. Quite literally, telling little jokes on the side. I couldn't believe it. So I was score 1 for the little guy. I doubted it. I said, "What kind of person's going to fall for magic?" And apparently, these women were loving it. He got a phone number or 2, or maybe it was a magic trick. I don't know how he got them, but I was totally blown away and impressed by my man. And that leads us into today's guest. Oh, yes, indeed. I am here today with my guest, Charles Bach, Master Illusionist.
Yeah, thank you for being.
Charles,
thanks for having me here.
Of course, thank you for coming. Now, let's start with your title. You are a Master Illusionist, is what I called you and what I know you as. Not a magician, correct?
Well, there is a difference between magician and illusionist in terms of our field of the business.
Enlighten us.
So magicians will call an illusion something that involves a person. So if you cut a person in half, if you make them float in the air, if you stick a sword through them, something big, like a big trick, that's called an illusion.
Okay. So it literally has to involve a person then?
It involves a human being.
Okay. So the old cutting someone in half.
Yes.
That's an illusion.
That's an illusion.
All right.
Yeah, a big box that you stick somebody in, that's an illusion.
Gotcha.
And there's a whole business of people that just build illusions.
Oh, okay. And a magician is?
And a magician is like what you get from the magic store. They perform magic that is smaller. It's stage magic, card magic, rope magic, things that are more in the hands.
And okay, which also I've known you for a few years now. Now you do that as well, though. So you also are a magician.
So I get to use both titles. Yeah. I'm double
I was
fisted.
gonna say, do you get charged extra taxes at the end of the year, or okay? Now, what would a guy? It's just on that. I think then of the magicians. I'm a rookie. I don't know a lot about it. You're my only magician friend and slash illusionist friend. Copperfield's the first guy that always comes to mind when I think magic, and then now he is then an illusionist.
Copperfield is an illusionist, but he's also a magician. If you ever remember his magic specials, he always do small stuff as well as the big stuff.
I remember he made the Statue of Liberty disappear.
That's a pretty big illusion.
That's an illusion, right? It involves a person.
Yes.
Okay.
It involves a statue of a person.
Well, I appreciate you coming in. What I'd love to do is, I don't know a ton about your world. I've always loved magic. I think as a comedian, there's always an interesting... Johnny Carson famously loved magic and was fascinated by it, and we get to work with you guys sometimes quite literally. The Magic Castle the Comedy and Magic Club in Hermosa Beach, California. There's always a magician or someone on that show, literally as it's named. How do you start? How do you, as a comedian, I was funny growing up. I liked making jokes. I always liked watching stand-up. What is your story? What's your journey?
It's kind of similar. Magicians will find somebody that does a trick for them, or something they see on TV, or something they see on YouTube, and they get it bitten by the bug, we call it.
Okay.
And this bug makes you want to learn more about magic and learn how to do magic, and then learn to perform it.
Okay. What was your bug? What was your start?
So my uncle showed me a card trick, and it blew me away. I had no idea how it was done. I was a little kid, and I figured it out that night. I spent all this time figuring it out because I was just drawn to this. And then I did it for him the next day, and he was like, "Holy, how did you know? How did you know how to do that?"
You stayed up figuring it out.
I stayed up
yourself.
Figuring it out.
Wow.
Yeah. And he said to my parents, "Did you tell him how to do this?" And they said, "No." They said, "Well, this is something he probably, would get into." So I went to the magic store, I went to the library, I got the books, I got the tricks, and
the whole thing.
the rest is history. I just kept learning and progressing.
Now, was your uncle a magician, or was he just
not.
funny uncle?
He was not a magician.
Always got
really,
a trick.
Really funny guy. And
that classic uncle who's got
absolutely.
a trick and
absolutely.
find you a quarter behind the ear.
He was into theater and acting and things like that, but not into magic at all.
Okay.
He just happened to know a really cool card trick.
See, that's one of those. I mean, you feel like a lot of people kind of start that way in any discipline. It's like, I saw a thing, I loved it, I started reading about it. I mean, it sounds like he was right. It's just in you, right, from a young age.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And it's been a love my entire life.
Yeah.
It really has something that just blossomed.
Well, and that's exactly. I know you when you talk about it, you do. You seem to have loved it from the beginning and still do. You love talking about it and asking about it. You sent me, in fact, to Copperfield when I was in Vegas. You said you got to go see him, and which is one of the things I admire about you. It's in this entertainment in general, certainly in the comedy world, there's a lot of competition. There's sometimes a little bit of a tension, but you are so supportive of magicians. You tell me, this guy's good. You got to see him. You love certain tricks. You always talk positively about.
I really do. There's a lot of magicians out there that I really respect. I like what they do, and I like the fact that they forward our profession.
Exactly.
They take it forward. Same with comedians. I'm sure that these guys are cutting edge. They're really trying new things, and that's what I appreciate. It's like new art, something new.
Yeah, well, exactly.
And they're creative ways of even taking the old and making it better.
That's exactly, and you love to see it done well, and you love to see a respect for it. No, I do. I feel the same way about comedy. And you reminded me now of Steve Martin, also a Southern California guy, right? Who started at Knott's Berry Farm, wasn't he? I remember I read his biography, and he was doing.
Steve Martin was working in the magic shop. He worked at Disneyland Magic Shop too.
Is that right?
And he actually, there's a pretty well-known magician in magic that sold him his first trick.
Is that right?
Steve sold him his first trick, and that got him hooked on magic.
Okay, yeah. I remember that was a big part of it, and they used to pound out shows, or several shows a day, right?
Oh,
and
yes.
That's so. Speaking of, what was your first real show? Were you doing them in the living room for your family growing up, or what?
So my first show was I was 8 years old, and I did a church banquet. They hired me for $25 to do a little 20-minute show.
At age 8.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was little in my little tuxedo and my little dickie in the front. And it was fine. It was okay. It wasn't amazing. And I had a bunch of tricks that I got from the magic store and kind of put together a little routine. And and they liked it. They gave me $25. It cost us $8 each to eat. So I made $1 that night.
Your first dollar in entertainment.
And I saved the dollar. I actually do have the dollar.
Do you still have the dollar?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. That's good. Hey, at age 8, that's
In
not
my
bad.
really bad cursive, I wrote my first dollar.
I love it. And was the show, looking back, was the show any good, or was it?
It was cute.
It was cute.
So you can get cuteness goes a long way.
I bet it does.
When you're a kid.
Especially when you're 8 years old. Yeah, if a trick doesn't work, you're still adorable.
That's right.
Now, what if you're, as an adult, if a trick doesn't work? I'm fascinated as a comedian because we do a joke and we obviously write new jokes. Sometimes they don't fly, but you can cover it as a comic. It's just sort of move on to the next one, or you have a kind of a save. Johnny Carson used to do, a great save. But when you put a trick up and it actually doesn't work, and by the way, do you call it a trick or what do I call it?
I call them tricks. I call them illusions. I call them effects. I call them magic. Multiple terms.
Yeah.
Whatever feels appropriate at the time. But things do go wrong. We do have what is an epic fail when something is totally exposed and the whole audience knows how it works.
Okay.
And that is horrible.
It sounds horrible.
That is the sinking feeling in your stomach you get that is like so embarrassed. The redness comes over your face. You're just like, there's nothing I can do. It's like being naked and exposed.
It sounds
That's
horrible.
the worst. Not everything happens that way, and 90% of the time, if something goes wrong, only you know about it. Because you know how to cover for it, and we can handle it in other ways.
Okay. Something misses something there. Now, I know you don't like, as most illusionists and magicians, you don't like to talk about how something's done. I've known you a while, and you still, I try to guess, so you won't tell me how anything's necessarily done. Trade secret, and I get it. Can you talk about any particular failures or anything that's gone wrong on stage?
There's been things that are technically supposed to work, like the power cable goes out on something and a light will not work.
Wow.
And I do a couple of things with actual light bulbs, and multiple times, the light didn't go on. And I now know to keep a spare light bulb right in the wing. I can walk right over, not missing a beat of the music, and change the bulb, and I'm back in the show.
Wow. And that actually reminds me a bit of comedy was, we forget, as comedians, we give sometimes the audience a little too much credit for knowing everything that's going on or being aware. Obviously with you, if something doesn't work, they see it, but if you calmly walk over, get another bulb and do the trick, everyone's fine, They're
okay.
It's when you turn bright red and start crying. that's when it starts to get a little tricky.
I try to keep from crying.
Yeah.
But I have had moments, like that light bulb that I swing it around like the Who. I swing the microphone cord. I swing the light bulb around, and one time, this is when I first started doing this, I'm swinging it around because I thought it looked so cool with this light spinning, and the whole thing came off of the cord and went smashing right into the side wall of the stage.
Oh my.
Yeah, it got a great response. The audience was like, whoa, so cool.
Look what he did.
But I had to fix the light bulb so I wouldn't have that happen.
So now, is there, the first time you put a new illusion or trick up, is there a massive rush? How many times do you practice something before you put it on stage? And then when you do, that first time's got to be... Because I know for comedy, when I tell a joke for the first time, a new joke, it's I feel like I'm doing it for the first time again. I'm naked, I'm excited, I'm scared, yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. So the first time you do something, it depends on the level of technicality that's involved in it. If it's very technical, it's best to shorten the routine as tight as possible so it just gets to the effect and gets past it.
That's
so you don't have so much to worry about.
That's
and
really
then you
interesting.
expand slowly beyond that and add more elements to it or more effects to the presentation.
Okay. That's, that again, not to keep drawing parallels, but I would say comedy is the same idea. If you have a new idea, new thing, get to it, run through it, get to the punchline. If nothing, keep moving on.
Yes.
Go to your rest of your show. And then from there you can, hey, all right, a little more build up, maybe an extra joke in there. Yeah.
And probably just like comedy, you'll put it between two solid pieces so you know that it's got an opportunity to
absolutely
either hit or fail. You know what's going on.
And either way, you're on to a new, yeah. No more things smashing against the walls. You also have an element of dance in your shows. You are, as someone who cannot dance, at least in a serious fashion, maybe a little late night wedding.
Dancing is very funny.
That's thank you. Funny is exactly my point, I guess. I wouldn't call myself an accomplished dancer. I'm more entertainment at weddings. But you dance well.
So I put dance into the show, and kind of at the same time, I saw my sister doing a dance recital. and there's like 16 little orphan Annies dressed up with these little red wigs doing a tap dance. And I thought it was cool. I'm like, I think it would be fun to take dance. So I said to my mom and dad, I'd like to take dance, which was not a boy thing in the Midwest at all.
I imagine so.
But
you grew up in St. Louis?
Yeah, right in the Midwest. Yeah,
Okay,
Southern Illinois, right across the river from St. Louis.
Anheuser-Busch territory.
That's right.
Yeah. My son's going to be a dancer.
So that wasn't easy to get across, but they did take me to class, and fortunately there were like 5 boys that were in my class that were kind of into it a little bit.
Okay.
Some of them went off to play soccer and football and other things like that, but a few of us stayed in, and I really liked it.
Okay.
So I kept doing it, and fortunately I progressed pretty far, and I started dancing with companies in St. Louis and being asked to do little projects in other cities, and then I started doing ballet companies.
Wow.
So I actually went to university for dance, theater
My
and
goodness,
dance.
is that right?
My degree is in Bachelor of Fine Arts and Dance.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, and all the while, are you doing magic?
So
or?
all the time, I still do magic. On the weekends, I'm doing birthday parties, I'm doing banquets, I'm doing Girl Scouts. I probably did 10,000 birthday parties, but I didn't ever have to work at McDonald's.
Oh, there you go.
I had a normal job as a performer, and I could also pursue a dance career.
And I love that, and that's same for comedy. You're like, wow, you're doing. I've emceeing bar mitzvahs, doing whatever I'm doing, but I'm saying no, I'm not working a real job. I'm working quote unquote in entertainment, barely, but starting out, you're doing it. And then at what point did you decide to incorporate it into your act? Because for our listeners, Charles it's an amazing show, and one of the things I love about your show is it feels very much like you. Like I know you, and I watch your show, and I feel like it's you. It's a show no one else could do. And part of that is you incorporate, just as you say, personal things and dancing throughout. How did that come about?
So I was dancing in a ballet company in New York, and I had 5 dance jobs. I had done a ton of nutcrackers, and I messed up my knee pretty bad.
All right.
And I had all these dance jobs, and then this one job I auditioned for to do a magic show in Vegas. And it was called Caesar's Magical Empire at Caesar's Palace. And they're hiring magicians from all over the country. And I got the job. And I'm like, okay, I reluctantly signed a 6-month contract. And I ended up staying 4.5 years.
Okay.
And I loved it. And I got to work with the top magicians in the entire country. They would come in and out, and I worked with the best. And from building my own show there, I started buying illusions, the big tricks, and building my own show. And then the guy across the street, his dad, Greg Fruin, who is a pretty big magician, if anybody Googles him, you'll find out. He's got his own show in Niagara Falls now. Was across the street, and we became good friends. We built illusions together and played around, and he's like, my dad will send you out on cruise ships. I'm like, great.
Let's do this.
I'm tired of looking at the Las Vegas Strip every day. Let's go explore the world. And I really did. And I started traveling the world, and it's been awesome.
And you traveled all over the world.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I've circled the globe.
But that's an impressive thing. Now, at what point, you kind of glossed over Vegas. You now live in Vegas.
I do. I bought a house while I was doing that.
Okay, and I perform there a few times a year, obviously a nice comedy scene. But you've described it as, a really hot time in Vegas.
So that time when that show opened was a very hot time for Vegas. There were lots of shows. At that time, all the hotels had their own show, and they supported those shows. They actually bought a show. Nowadays, after the whole financial crisis, things started to change, and every department of the hotels had to make its own money. So that means the showrooms became like rental showrooms. Somebody wants to buy the room, they can get approved to buy the room and do their own show, but they have to pay a rental.
That's all.
The hotels don't really buy shows anymore.
Wow. So you need some real capital going in in order to put up a show.
It's an expensive proposition.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Which is all the better for traveling on the ships. They actually still hire great entertainment, and we get to see the world and perform for big audiences every night.
Absolutely. And when you travel, particularly on a ship, you were talking about large illusions and things that what I'm getting at is travel and shipping and baggage. It's more than 2 checked bags, I would think, to bring.
Well, I travel with 2 checked bags, and all the stuff goes ahead of me a couple weeks ahead. And it usually gets there the day that I arrive. The stuff is ready for us, and we just load it on.
So you literally are shipping stuff separately.
Sometimes by sea, sometimes by air.
Wow.
And it's always a little scary. Is everything going to get there okay?
Is it going to be in one piece?
Sometimes there's a big old hole in the side of the case, and you're sweating as you open it up, going, hopefully the prop is okay. And it's
I would think. Have you had anything just get
Most definitely. I've had case bottoms fall out. I've had forklift holes in the side. I've had a whole back lift off as I lifted the lid. The entire back lifted off, and the whole prop was exposed.
Oh my goodness!
It was scary.
Yeah, and that's it. And then do you get in, and how much time do you have now? You got to perform that night?
And then you usually have a day or two to get ready, and then you're up.
And
the show is up. If you need to do a repair, you're working fast. Get on it.
I believe it, which is, you're pretty handy, though. I called you yesterday. You were soldering. Today you were sewing.
I have learned an unbelievable amount of skills being... I'll tell you this, close-up magicians, great. They can work with cards, they can work with coins, they can work with small objects. An illusionist has to be able to do anything. You have to be able to sew your costumes, you have to be able to solder electronics. I've learned hydraulics, pneumatics, electronics, sewing. I've learned so many things because of the job.
But you seem to have a knack for it, though, because every time I talk to you, you're also fixing an iPhone, you're replacing a screen on a today, or even you're off doing your computer. I mean, you must have a knack for it.
And a lot of the guys that I have run into, they have the same kind of skill set. They've just kind of developed it over time.
Okay.
I have to learn graphic design. I have to learn how to do video editing. They kind of just learn it.
You just have to,
Necessity is the...
Well, that's, they say, my dad always says that about, you buy a house and you learn how to plumb and you learn how to, do these things. Well, now you mentioned buying a trick. When you said in Vegas, all of a sudden you started buying tricks. And that was a part of the business that I found fascinating. I didn't know how you guys got your tricks, came up with your tricks, and it turns out there is an entire market of buying tricks, having a proprietary trick. You talk a little more about that.
So there are builders that are exclusively building illusions, and all of Copperfield's stuff, all of the big illusionists, Chris Angel, all these guys pretty much have their stuff built by the same people.
Okay.
And they're very reputable. They'll always keep the secret.
Okay.
And they will not build it for anybody else except that person. So when you have something original that you've created, you know that it's safely in their hands. Nobody else is going to have it.
So who comes up with the idea? Because forgive me,
there's a whole group of those people too.
Yeah, because I'm an outsider. I don't know anything. I think, okay, magic show or illusion, you're going to cut the woman in half, or you're going to, the classics that we know. Does someone own that trick?
So there are classic illusions. There's a group of illusions that are now in the public domain that you'll see a lot of guys doing.
Okay.
And then when a guy's starting off, that's what they'll do. They'll buy some of the classic illusions.
Okay.
And then maybe change
Who are they
the music.
buying them from?
Same builders.
Okay.
Same builders
So
who know how to build those props.
Oh, so they're buying the actual material from them. They're not buying the intellectual property.
The intellectual property is included when they build the illusion sometimes.
Other
times, you'll pay the rights to the creator.
Okay. So have you created your own illusions?
I have created... Well, I started off building props that I knew that were classics, and then applying my own choreography and dance stuff and presentation to make it unique.
Sure.
Because I couldn't afford to go completely original.
Okay.
Original is about 5 times the cost of a standard illusion.
Original meaning you invented this.
You go from beginning to end, R&D, the whole idea, until it's ready for stage.
And you hire someone to physically build it.
Yes.
And, and that just costs a lot more.
It costs about 5 times more.
I see.
And a lot more time and effort. And you have to also be at least creative and understanding of the principles to be able to create that. Otherwise, it won't turn out like what you envision.
Well, I imagine. So and you would wind up creating something that potentially wouldn't work.
That's true.
Wow.
That's true.
You get to the end, you're like, all right, actually it's not working the way I expected.
And the audience goes, eh.
Yeah. That's, wow, okay. So this is fascinating to me then. So you can buy some tricks or illusions that exist. You put them up as a show. You put your own flair on it. You do dance, you do whatever. From there, we've talked about guys like Copperfield and some who didn't want anyone else doing a show that they do, and so they've gone out and simply they can purchase the rights to the show, or
there are effects or illusions or creations that people put out there onto the market, and they're sold through these builders or through themselves.
Okay.
And Copperfield has actually bought a few of those and made them exclusive to himself. The snow trick that you've seen him do. He does a trick with an iPhone where the whole audience does it. He does this, takes a guy from the audience, covers him up, and he floats in the air and disappears and ends up on the stage. Well, all those things were seen by Copperfield, and he actually bought the exclusive rights so he could own that for himself.
Wow.
He wanted to be the only one to do it. When it came to the snow, he had a short-term rights for that one. So now you'll probably see other guys making snow and all that. But the other ones, he completely wanted to own it himself.
Wow. Okay. And he has the money to do that.
It's not cheap, and I know that he writes a big check, but that is now part of his
now you have
repertoire.
To go see him, yeah. And that's nice to hear, though, because in the comedy community we have the same thing. I mean, the good comedians want other comics to be good. They want quality work being done, and there's a respect for originality and not borrowing material without. And of course, there is a little bit of an underworld where there's guys who are stealing stuff, or they're not the best comics to begin with, and they're borrowing, cheating, taking someone's bit. It's obviously not very well respected, and those guys usually, especially because the internet these days, you get exposed pretty quickly. I imagine that you guys are similar then. It's the good ones are doing the work, and are there some guys out there who
There's definitely guys that are ripping him off. There's a couple of companies in China that will watch YouTube videos, see an illusion, and then duplicate it.
Really?
And sometimes it's a dangerous escape or something like that. There is one effect that is pretty dangerous that they have built poorly, and it's actually life-threatening because they're not building it properly.
Doing it well. Wow.
And then they're putting it on the market for a third of the price.
Oh.
Well, you're actually taking a chance with your life now because this product is not built to the same specs.
Yeah, you're getting a knockoff.
Vegas builder will do.
Right. Or some 6-year-old in a sweatshop's making it. That's not a good making your escape. And speaking of proprietary, one of the first shows I ever see you do was the Great Underwater Escape. Is that what you call it?
Yes, the Underwater Escape. And
okay, which nobody else in the world does.
Nobody else does this thing. I came up with it when I was on a ship and we were about to do a crossing across the Atlantic from Europe to the States, and I had this idea to do an underwater escape over the spot where the Titanic sunk. And I went to the cruise director. I said, I think this would be a cool idea as we sail past that area. And they go, oh my God, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I said, I need to work on it, and we can do it then. So I was in Finland. I bought some chains. I bought some locks, and I started practicing holding my breath and going underwater. And then the actual night before it, the seas were a little rough, so they actually had to drain the pool. I couldn't do my final rehearsal in the pool, which was very scary.
Yeah.
And the next day, I'm like, okay, I'm up for this, but I was shaking.
Oh, they filmed it the next day?
They filmed it for the performance the next day.
Okay.
Everything was ready. 3 cameras there, and a bunch of people gathered around, and it was cold and windy, and very mysterious and magical.
Yeah.
And I did it, and I was in maybe a minute and 10 seconds.
And for our listeners, you are chained up.
I'm chained up in right now I do it with 100 pounds of chain. Some locks and shackles, and 6 guys from the audience chain me up, and I go into the pool and escape.
He gets thrown into the pool, he's on the bottom, and he escapes, but it takes a little while.
It does take a while. First time I was scared. The shaking was not just being cold, the shaking was nerves too.
I can believe it.
And I got out, and the crowd went nuts, and then I kept seeing how I could make it better.
Okay.
And better and better. And then I came to the States, and I found this really massive, scary-looking chain, and better locks and better shackles, and I added all this stuff in music and made it dramatic, and now it's pretty spectacular.
It is spectacular is one word. I don't know how your parents would feel about watching it, but
I hold my breath a lot longer now.
I hold my breath too when you do it. It's one of those things. I'm not so relaxed when I see it. I'm just like, oh gosh, can someone get him? Let's just get him. But you always pop out, and thank goodness for that. Now, somewhere along the line of this lovely journey, you met a woman.
Yes.
Who is now is assistant the right word? I don't want to, because I know she's the boss in the marriage.
Yeah,
so
she's the permanent assistant.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yes. I shouldn't call her your assistant at all.
Permanent team member.
Yes, because I know who runs the show really. But one of my favorite people on the planet is your wife Magdalena. Now tell us, where did you meet, and how did that come about?
So actually, about the same time I did that underwater, I was doing, my true love, or my first love was magic. My true love came later. And that happened in a night out. We were hanging out in Russia with a sax player I was playing in the city with him, and we came back to the ship about 5 a.m. after going to listen to bands and music and having drinks, And then she was working on the ship, and she was upstairs in the breakfast area, and she had the most beautiful legs I had ever seen. And I had to go talk to her. And I did. And she thought I was a guest. She had no idea that I was the magician on board. And she was nice to me, sort of. But, yeah, she was wonderful and just beautiful. And I had to meet her. And she was so smart and just really had it together. And that's beautiful accent. And she's from Poland. And she had finished law school and wanted to do something crazy. So she came to work on the ship for the summer. And that's where we met.
Wow.
And then we spent every night talking and getting to know each other better. And then I didn't even, she said, what did I go to school for? And I guessed every area of university you could go to except law. So I finally found out she was a lawyer, which was perfect for her because she's very good at talking and negotiating and dealing with problems.
Yeah, she is a sharp one. Yeah. So now you spent the summer chatting her up,
and then we had a long distance relationship, and this is the challenge when you're out there on the road. How do you keep it going? And we had this was MSN Messenger was probably the best thing we had because we could chat back and forth. The internet was maybe 10 cents a minute or something on the ship.
Okay. So you move on from that cruise ship. You're doing other things, other places.
She left the ship to go back to pass the bar exam.
Oh, okay.
She became a lawyer.
Okay.
She worked in the EU. We still were back and forth. I'd bring her on a cruise to South America. We went to all over the place, and I would go to see her. She would come to see me, and I'm like, boy, this is getting tiring. Just dating is difficult like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I really want to be with this girl.
Wow.
I really do. So I brought her on a cruise, and we were in the Mediterranean, and we go to Venice.
Beautiful.
And I got a gondola, and we're on a gondola in Venice and sailing through, and the guy's like, I'm not going to sing. I'm like, that's okay. We just want to take the gondola ride.
Did he just say that proactively?
He said it at the beginning. He's like, it's 75 euros, and I'm not going to sing. I'm like, okay, that's fine. We just really want to take the beautiful ride.
That's great.
And he's like, okay.
The jaded gondolier.
I'm sure they are. And he takes us around, and then I finally got on one knee, and I asked her in Polish if she would marry me.
Look at you, in Polish you asked.
On a gondola in Venice.
Oh my goodness.
It was pretty romantic and pretty, talk about a feeling of magic and euphoria. That was it. It was really amazing.
Wow, and you had learned just in order to ask guys.
So yes, there were some Polish workers on board, and I went to them and I asked them. And it was one of the other waitresses in another department. I said, can you teach me how to do this? She said, yeah. And then I said it, and she goes, oh, okay, don't say it again. Because I said it the right way, and I guess it sounded perfect. And she was like, the next time I want to hear this is from the guy asking me.
Don't even. I love it. And smart to go to a woman, because if you'd gone to some guys at the, working at the bar, they might have
teach me something totally different. And I'd get smacked.
You would not be a married man today. So that's an amazing story. Now, so you're engaged. She says yes. And at what point does she become part of your show?
So pretty much right away, I went back to stay with her, and then we all made our plans and what the wedding was going to be. I went back on the ship to finish that contract, and the next year we had our wedding on 777, which is a lucky day.
Look at you.
In Poland, in a 15th century church, and it was just beautiful.
My goodness.
Really beautiful. I think if you're going to do it right. Make it special.
It sounds like...
And we'll never forget it.
No.
We'll never forget it.
And that's been a theme, I think, of your life, it seems. You do things right, and you kind of know right away when you know. From magic all the way on up to getting married. You sort of just knew. I like it, man. Well, this is what a perfect way and what a heartwarming way to, as a traveler and a performer, I think a lot of us always worry and struggle and wonder, where's it going, and am I going to meet someone, am I going to settle down? And this one makes me happy. I'm happy
it's
for
totally,
you.
And I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
It was a complete surprise.
Yeah.
Before I started that contract, I actually thought, now, who would I like to be with? I'd like to be with somebody smart, somebody beautiful, and somebody intelligent. And maybe a lawyer who's around 24, 25, who's got her act together, and that's exactly what happened. I go on this contract, and that's who I find. It was amazing.
You summoned it, yes.
So release that out into the universe, because it comes back.
And not to mention going out drinking all night with the guys till 5 a.m. was how you met. So maybe that's a good thing. I keep thinking I should tone it down, but maybe it's exactly the right thing. The world will present it to you when it's time. So what is next now? What's comes ahead? Since you seem to be summoning things, are you manifesting anything right now for the future?
I'm working on new projects, and I do like to create magic too. Just like these guys that create big illusions, I also create small tricks for magicians and put them out on the market. I have a couple of close-up tricks, and I have an app for the phone that allows people to do a trick with the music on their phone. They have somebody select a song, they shake the phone, and then without them ever saying the name of the song or even telling the magician, the phone will play their song. And anybody can do it. Actually, the phone does all the work.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds really neat, actually.
It's on Google Play, it's on the Apple App Store, it's on Amazon, and it's called Magic Tunes, just like iTunes, Magic Tunes.
I love it. And again, I mean, just in this business, in this day and age, you have to be doing a little of everything.
Absolutely. And people like to be able to carry something in their pocket, and everybody has a phone.
Sure.
So if you had a trick in your phone, you don't have to worry about a deck of cards. You're ready to go.
Are you ready? I love it. I love it. Well, I think I gotta jump on that app and try to get out there and impress some ladies with my new magic trick. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time. I know you got a show tonight.
I do. So I'm dressed and ready to go.
You're ready to go. Get off and stretch your hamstrings. Wait, what do you do before a show?
I do warm up for the big show, because I climb into those boxes and do all the stuff and lots of dancing.
You gotta be limber and ready.
The close-up show, I warm up my hands, and I kind of make sure the stage is set and all the props are ready in your pockets, ready to go.
I just set my alarm to make sure I'm awake in time for my shows. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles Bach, everybody. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for listening to Greetings from Somerville. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, and listen to all 3 of my stand-up comedy albums for free on Spotify, Pandora, and SiriusXM. I'm Michael Somerville. Have a great day.
Greetings from